Alright, hi YouTube. Welcome to another video. Hope you're doing pretty well, and hope you don't mind as I play another game. And so we're gonna jump in. I'm gonna have some fun, and hopefully you can have some fun with me. I guess I'm not gonna play any music on this particular video. It probably is just better for everybody if I don't. I imagine for copyright reasons predominantly. But I will say that I have definitely thought about trying to make some better YouTube videos myself. I definitely love how people are putting up a lot of music on YouTube and a lot of that study music, lo-fi stuff. I think it's really pretty cool, and I think my favorite ones are have much more ambiance. But speaking of ambiance, I think this game has some flavor of its own ambiance, although it's not a soundscape, right? This game is not a game known for its sound effects. So what makes this game have its ambiance? I'd probably argue it's the theme of strategy. And the more I play the game, it is a very mechanically intensive game, sure, with the way the units move, but you have actually so many units that the reality is it's much more fluid than you would think. So the game has a lot of fluidity, and I think there's like moments where the game is very fast paced, where the tide is strong, and then there are moments when the game is much slower, and it's like a slow build up phase in the game, basically building up units that are used for future attacks, pretty much, and you see it on both sides, and I find it interesting to do. So there is definitely a kind of compression, decompression, if you will, in war. I think the front lines have a lot of fluctuation, and I'm pretty sure that could be modeled mathematically. I'm pretty sure. I'm not exactly sure what your data source would be, because I'm pretty sure much of the tactical data is very hard to come by. But the thing about strategy is that it's much slower pace. It's much more timing is still very important in strategy, but the timing is not so immediate. The reactionary effects are not so immediate. It's not so spontaneous as tactics are. And yet, I would argue it's still very spontaneous. So there is this ebb and flow that goes into strategy, and I think you see it in sort of the buildup of the armies. And I think the main takeaway for me is when armies are very condensed, all the units are stacking up into a dense hex. You may have, like in our case here, Smolensk, right, which right now has 7 units when you combine both sides. That's a considerable amount of units that are stacked up. When you compare that to maybe somewhere like Velikie Luki, where you only have 2 units, one on each side. And if you go further north, I mean, many areas here, many of the German areas are only single stacked. Some of the Soviets are also single stacked. And then if we go over here to, say, the Ukraine, or now, I guess it would now be the, essentially the Ukraine, or the Ukrainian-Russo border. Somewhere around here is the historical border of those two nations. And you can see that much of the Soviet units are single units per hex, similar to the Germans. So I think the takeaway is that these formations are a lot less dense. So the units are much more spread out. The, amount of manpower per kilometer, which is one way of measuring it. Manpower at the front, although we got to keep in mind that there's multiple layers to a front. It's not just one defensive line. It may be several. You may have tactical defensive lines, and then you may have operational defensive lines, entire strategic defensive echelons. So this is, I think there's a lot of the layering of armies, I think really complicates the whole thing. And so that's not being shown in this game at all, but it's just something that comes to mind, and I'm just like, gee whiz, I wonder. It would be nice if we could get some more detailed information on that, because I mean, I just, as someone who appreciates, and I guess learning new things whenever I can, having a visual guide is always a big plus, in my opinion. So with that, we're going to continue on. We're going to continue the month of, this time, January. Now we're in the year 1942. So we're officially in the year 1942. This would now be the 4th year of the war. technically started in 1939, 1940, 41. Now we're in the fourth year. So we are now not even halfway, or maybe right around halfway, actually. This is actually roughly the so-called halfway point of World War II. I would say somewhere around 1942, 1943, depending on how you measure it, because there's a lot of ways to measure it. But most people think of the turning points, and they turn to the individual battles, which are significant. I would say mainly for political reasons, which did have an effect on industry and manpower and mobilization. But fundamentally, a lot of the action was not just being decided by single battles. They were more attritional in nature, and it's really a I would say like a it's a buildup of these battles, micro battles, if you want to call it, and just these attritional campaigns that really set the fate for, I think, the outcome of World War II, or at least militarily, which ultimately kind of set the stage for much of the war. So it really was a very fascinating war, in that the battles did have such a decisive impact on everything else. But I still question just how important the military outcomes really were in war. Second to like industry or politics or geopolitics, things like that. So anyways, all that going on in the background, we're going to start the production. I'm going to start with the German production, or Axis production, and then we'll switch over to the Soviets. And so last turn, the Soviets did make pretty interesting headway over here north of Smolensk. The Germans do have a reserve of several corps. My goal for the German army is just to make sure that all my units at the front line stay put. I don't want the Soviets breaking through anywhere along the front. Breakthroughs are like a big no-no for the Germans, for either side. If your enemy has a strategic initiative against you, and you're finding yourself in a situation where you have no choice but to defend, the easiest strategic defense is one in which the enemy doesn't break through, because then you can always fall back to new defensive lines, in theory. But when they break through, that's when the enemy will be able to circumvent, pretty much put all your units out of position and expose your supply lines. That's usually the greatest weakness of a breakthrough strategically. As we saw during the German offensive, all their progress to where they are now, what we're seeing now at Smolensk and Bryansk basically is a failure of a German breakthrough. So it's a stalemate, because the Germans have more units stacked up there. They failed to break through, but the Soviets right now, being the underdog, still don't have enough manpower to sort of turn the tide. So we're seeing kind of a operational stalemate here. I'm sure the Germans can still do more attacks if they want, but all their attacks, because of the winter paralysis, is going to be single fire. Even my Panzer Corps will roll at single fire. So I really don't want to. I'm really just not trying to send too many units. I'm not trying to do too many attacks, rather, as the Germans during the winter. So my number one priority for the German army is to make sure that all my ground units that have been deployed into this Soviet territory, we are an occupying force right now. We're very far away from our supplies and our logistics. It's a very long distance to keep our units at full combat strength. Therefore, the strategic priority is to, basically invest in my combat strength. I want as many German units to be as well equipped as possible. Now, the way this game works is that actually comes at the cost of apparently like strategic, large scale initiative. I'm not exactly sure what these HQ icons represent, but in this game they represent the movement of an army. So yes, I have strong static defenders, but I won't have a very fluid army. So anyways, the one HQ I will build up is OKH, because that one is strategic. I can command units across the whole front. I believe the German production is at 69 right now. And I probably should double check. They had 54 by default. 1, 2, 3, 4, including Odessa. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Yeah. So yeah, they do have 69. So I just spent 15 actually, fixed 15 on OKH. They also cost a +5 in production because winter logistics are very bad for the German army in the winter. This first winter they're extra penalized, and I think this is like probably the first time in the history of the essentially the Prussian army military in which they actually fought this far deep into Soviet territory, this far late into the winter. And I think this is the first time they did that. So they were really facing a whole new environment that they weren't familiar with, and it was just enough to kind of keep them off balance. And then, of course, the logistics. Their equipment was not prepared for the conditions. A lot of breakdowns were happening. So I'm pretty sure that's what that +5 represents. A 50% boost in like logistical costs. So that's that. I have now 50 production points. I'm going to start building up these Panzer Corps. So that's going to be 12. I could build this one that costs 6. That's 18 so far. And I had 50. So that leaves me with 32 production points left. And I could spend those on mostly infantry, which is what I want. I want all my infantry really to be at full strength. So there's another 12. That leaves me with 20. I think my 20, I'll spend 2 here. That leaves me now with 12. And I have one of two choices right now. That I said, yep, that leaves me with 12. I can either spend the remaining 12 on these mech corps to just strengthen our defense, basically ensure that all our frontline units are at full combat strength against whatever the Soviets decide to throw against us, or I could instead spend it on maybe more infantry, give Army Group North some extra reinforcements perhaps. Wouldn't be a bad idea. Or reinforce these areas. I got to keep in mind that whichever sectors I choose to invest in, I can't really invest in the other. At least not so obviously, I don't think. I guess I could. No, yeah. Anyways, I'm not sure if what I'm saying is accurate. I guess I have reason to believe that it's not accurate, but I'm just not sure why. If that makes sense. So anyways, that's pretty much for the German production. Let's not forget the Finnish production. And they entered the war in September. So they've gained production for November, December, and now January. I think they entered, right? They entered the war in September. So let's see. October, November, December, and January. So they get 4 months of production right now. They get 3 production points per turn, right? And you can double check that if you look at this player aid card. We just did a look for Finland, somewhere here. And it says 1 for city, 1 for resource. That resource is all the way up here in the north, Petsamo, and then the other city resource is Helsinki. But because it became an axis, this is doubled. And so now it's 3 production points. I guess the game is suggesting that the German army was, or the entire Axis war industry was twice as efficient at extracting oil than their allied counterparts. I don't know if that's really true or not. I'm pretty sure it's not. But according to this game, that's what this game is saying. And so, that's an interesting stat if you ask me. So we're going to increase that. So I have 12. I'm going to spend 5 for the Mannerheim HQ. Spend another 4 on this fourth, I think it's a Finnish Corps. And then that leaves me with 3 left. I'll spend this 3 on this militia unit. Why not? And then, yeah, that's it for the Finnish. And I am making sure I'm keeping track of my nationalities here. Not confusing myself, am I? But then if I go to now the Western Front, the production for the Germans is 27 on the Western Front. It was 17 in the last season, but we gained another 5, just in general, and then I transferred 5 over from the Mediterranean front since it's been pretty inactive. So I just haven't spent much there. The British have been taking their sweet old time making a move. And so I feel very confident with having 27 production points on the Western Front. We'll spend 10 on OKW, which is not penalized by that winter rule. This Axis winter paralysis only pertains to the Eastern Front. And I'm pretty sure that is the case. I probably should actually double check that. Let me go here. And yeah, let me just try to figure out something of value. Definitely something of value. So let's see here. This is Eurofront rulebook that we're looking through. And my question was, what was my question? Oh, the winter axis paralysis, right? I think that's going to be under weather effects, which I believe are right after the production. Yep, here we go, snow effects. And then here it is, 12.45, winter axis paralysis. It says axis Eastern Front HQs cost 15. So it is only an Eastern Front problem. So that brings us, going to bring us from 27 down to 17 production points. Now we can spend the remaining 17 on this front here. Question is what kind of units do I want to build up? I will go ahead and build up, keep building up my militia units. You know, I don't want the British doing any sort of weird maneuver. So that's going to bring me down to 14. I can bring up this unit. It's an airborne unit. And it's grounded. I believe in the 1941 campaign, it's already grounded. I'm pretty sure there's an icon we can use for that. Oh yeah, here we go. Paris grounded. I guess we'll put it on the unit. I'm not sure, or I'm pretty sure you would actually normally put that on the actual like calendar table here, but we won't. There's no need. But it is a grounded unit, meaning that its production is halved. It has double defense, or excuse me, double fire by default. So it kind of is like an elite German unit. You know, it has the same stats as a mech core, except that it's not as fast. So it is a downgraded, it is basically a demotorized mech corps. So it's basically elite German troops to some degree. They're more expensive though. So I'll spend it on that. That leaves me with 8. And that remaining 8, I think I'm going to spend it on these 2 infantry here. Because I'm trying to bring over some more German reinforcements to the Eastern Front. I want to, although it's clear to me that most of the units on the Eastern Front are still under strength. So, you know, it's going to take us some time to build up. But the overall strategy for the German army right now, as we roll into 1942, is to, at the very least, just try to re-heal the German army in such a way that it is at full operational capability come summer 1942. And the idea being that, you know, whatever happens in 1942, we'll just be able to be that much more of an effective army at trying to achieve an objective. I'm not sure what that objective actually is going to be. That's part of the problem. And that's actually the fundamental strategic problem with the German army is that it's not really clear what to do on the Eastern Front, how to actually destroy or defeat completely the Soviet Union. It just seems hard because, you know, the Soviets have such a large nation with so many spread out industrial targets, and the German army is feeling the pain of being spread out on the Eastern Front. You know, keep in mind that at the start of Barbarossa, you know, the front was so much smaller. You know, we just had to worry about Poland and Romania. But now, I mean, it definitely feels like the front is much, much longer. So that increase in the width of the front, I think, it has diluted the density of at least the German army. Well, the Soviets, I mean, they're just trying to get a footing. They've been trying to get a footing for quite some time now. So anyways, all that pretty interesting. With all that said, all that's left is the Mediterranean roll. And we're only going to roll 2 dice. We only get 3. I'm pretty sure we transferred over a dice roll, didn't we? According to this, I did not. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the Mediterranean Front HQ. I'm going to transfer over these 3 production points that we just gained, which is not a whole lot. And we're going to transfer them over to the next month for February. So that's that. So that's all there is for the Axis. We can switch over to the Allied production now. And we'll start with the British, who have 25 production, I believe, to spend in the Mediterranean. Or maybe they only have 20. According to this, they have 25. And then I think they have 17 on the Western Front. So yeah, we're going to spend... I'm going to roll the 5 dice, see what we get. We get 10 plus another 8 is 18. And I'm going to build up this British HQ unit, which right now only costs 10 production points because it's at Tobruk, which is a minor port. And then that's a special rule when it comes to Mediterranean production that you have to check up on. But eventually you get around to understanding it. But basically, took me a while to figure it out. But you're going to see that for the Mediterranean front, or if you look at the HQ costs on this table, you're going to see these like footnotes. And the footnotes to look at are the extreme cost footnotes. I guess as well as the allied costs, but really the extreme cost number 10. And if you go here, it says +5/10 in sea supply, +10/20 in road supply. And you're like, what is that? Sea supply and road supply. And those are just basically 2 different supply options that you may have for your units in the Mediterranean front, also in the northern front. But this applies to, I think, anywhere on the front. But you'll see that units that are in road supply, units that are in road supply, their supply source is coming from, it's coming directly from some sort of roadway, so that's their like limit as far as supplies. This HQ here, the one that's in Tobruk, I think technically is in sea supply, but it is also in normal supply. And I think, I don't think they get penalized when they're in a port. But if we were under siege, maybe, man, I have to really check up on this rule now. But maybe I should find the exception to the rule. I'm pretty sure it's in the Mediterranean Front rule book. See if I can find it here. Dang bug is flying near my face. Let me find it here. I'm going to look for it. We'll find it. I'm sure probably any of you who are watching this want to simply see some good old combat. But we're doing a tutorial. And, I think it makes good sense to show this rule if I can find it in a timely manner. I might not. It may be too cumbersome for me to find. It's not here. Maybe under... I think it may be under just HQ rules, which are probably going to be around here. I believe we're reading on movement, stacking limits, talks about HQs, talks about combat support, and maybe actually under production, come to think of it. Probably going to be in production, and this is how it is. I think this is how it is, folks. I wish I could explain it a little faster or show you guys a faster way, but this has been the fastest way for me to learn. It's just dive into the book and dissect it. But I think a really great thing that I could actually deliver, that I think I would be able to deliver on at some point, is just simply create like an open source, code that basically has us able to play this game. You don't have to actually have the rules. But I found the rules. Here it is. It says sea supply and road supply. And yeah, pretty much. So that is something that I am trying to figure out. But I'm really bad at JavaScript right now. Like, I'm just a complete and total noob. And I think the level of algorithm is going to be pretty sophisticated. I think it's going to be, I don't even know how to make a chess game with JavaScript. So I'm still learning. What I'm trying to say, we're still learning. So I'm just going to throw that out there for anybody who is curious as to, I think, where we're headed, I guess, as far as just trying to figure out the future of military history, really. At least one component, or at least World War II gaming history. But yeah, this rule here, it says HQs in sea supplies cost +5 unless they are in or adjacent to a friendly major port or in a Mediterranean front minor port in secure supply. In secure sea supply. So yeah, I guess that's just a general rule of thumb. I think this rule really is only going to apply to units that maybe are like have amphibious invasion sites, right? Although actually it says here in beachhead supplies the costs are +10. No, so the costs are way more in a beachhead supply, and they're just as much as road supply. So I can't really think of a scenario where these units would only be in sea supplies. Oh, I understand now. Okay, I think I got it. So yeah, they're going to have to depend on sea supply, but that's the only thing they can depend on. And for some reason, the port would be an open port. What I'm trying to say, yeah, so this unit, because it's on the port, we don't have to worry about that. So it took me a long time to explain that, but anyways, we still have, we had 18 production points, so I just spent 10. I got 8 left. I'm going to spend another, oh man, I was going to spend on this mech unit, but it actually costs 9. So that's an oof. So maybe I could just try to forego the British move. Don't think that's a good idea. What I really wish we could do is, I need another unit out in Alexandria, because I am worried about some sort of German amphibious invasion that they could try to do. If they try to like amphibiouly invade Alexandria, that would be a big no-no. But so I need some sort of unit there. I could pull out a unit out of Palestine or Iraq, but I'm pretty sure they're susceptible to these diplomatic event rules that can lead to a revolt or revolution, and basically these two nations can become, they can join the Axis, and we don't want that to happen. And one of the ways you can deny that from happening is by just having a garrison of units. So these units, for all I care, are going to stay there for the rest of the war, because I don't want to deal with those revolutions. Meaning that if I want to have any more British reinforcements in North Africa, I need more units to arrive. That's the bottom line. So the British situation, not looking great. We're trying to attack the Germans or the Axis, but the Axis are dug in pretty good. And unless we break through somewhere, I just don't see us achieving any real success. So yeah, I have 8 production points left, and I don't want to waste it, but I think I'm going to go ahead and waste it just so that we have this HQ active. This HQ takes priority over anything else. So yeah, we're going to just do that. Then we have how much for the Western Front, the British? Let's see here. British have, what is this? 17 production on the Western Front. So I can do one of two things. I can either spend that money now, or wait one more turn, and I would have a little bit more production points to build some more units. I'd be more efficient. And I think that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to save our production for another month. We're going to move it over to the month of February. And we're going to transform that production to, what would be the number? It would be 17. So both the Axis and the British are gaining extra production in the next month, but not this month. They're saving the production. This should be over here. Okay. Oh, and then also, we can now do the Soviet production. This is the last one before we can actually do the battle. So thank you for your patience if you've made it this far in the video. I know I take my sweet old time explaining the rules of this game, but to me it's pretty fascinating subject material, but it is simply, I understand that it's not for everyone, and most people are, I think there's different levels of interest when it comes to World War II history, so this is definitely more for the deeper audience, I would think. People who are willing to learn this kind of game. But you'd be surprised. I mean, from people I've spoken with who I've actually played with this game, I have found that they know a lot about the war, but a lot of them wouldn't know as much as you would think. They're gamers, true, and a lot of them just love the game for the mechanics, and may not be so into the history, which I find interesting. There's just different depths to being passionate about, I guess, both gaming and history, and trying to find the balance of both, or where most people stand, because I think everybody is somewhere on those two, at least on those two scales, being interested in history and being interested in gaming. So anyways, Soviet production is 50 according to our calculations. I'm presuming our calculations are accurate. I'm not going to double check anymore. I think we'll check one last time and then no more. I'm not going to double check because I think it slows down the gameplay a lot. Anyways, 6 for Leningrad, Riga, Minsk, Kyiv, Odessa, that's 10, 11 from Kryvyi Rog, 12 from Zaporozhye, 14 when you include Dnipropetrovsk, and then another 5 from Kharkov and Salino, that's 19. I count 19. So hold on, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Yep, I count 19. So they lost 19, but they've lost 13. Oh, and I'm forgetting Murmansk, that's 24. And then, so they've lost 24, but they've gained 6, so they're actually at 18. Yep, so they're at 50. Nope, the math is right. The math is completely right. So that Murmansk loss is definitely beginning to add up. I think I may have made it a little too easy for the Germans to take it, but hey, the dice speak for themselves. I also made some pretty big mistakes playing as the Soviets. I did not reinforce Murmansk. That was definitely a human blunder for sure. The odds could have been reduced. So that said, with 50 production, we also get 2 dice. This is going to be the Allied Lend-Lease, the British Lend-Lease that's coming over from these 2 transfers. But I have to roll the dice because they're all being intercepted by U-boats apparently. So I got to roll. So the Soviets gain 5. So we're at 55 production for this month. Build up Stavka, that's an easy one. Build up Western Fronts, rather. That's another easy buy. I got to figure out what I'm doing with the Soviets, right? Are we attacking? I want to keep attacking with the Soviets, but I also want to make sure that my army is healthy. And what I mean, and the way to do that is to basically just make sure that you don't have too many cadre units, and also that the Soviet force pool is relatively empty. Right now, it's not very empty. So I find myself thinking that it would be the best thing for me to build up the Soviet cadre infantry, but then of course if I do that, it's going to come at the cost of building up my current units, not to mention being able to launch good attacks. So anyways, I've spent 20 on HQs. So that's going to leave me with 35 production points. Here's another 16, a bundle of 16 units here. I guess I'll put this guy, since he's a veteran unit, over there. I'm gonna have to. I want to send them both to Soroka if I can. Try to get the Soviets, or at least one of them, over there. I want to send them back over there and try to do something about Murmansk. It's beginning to bother me. So do that. What else? And we may not be able to take it. It may be way too much of a pain to retake Murmansk. But being the Soviets, we're going to try, nevertheless. So anyways, if we have 35 and I just spent 16, 35 minus 16 is going to put me at, what is that? 24? I think it's 24 production points now, if I did my math right. No, I think it's 21. No, it's 19. Right? 35 minus 16 is 19. Please tell me that's right. I'm pretty sure it's right. 19 production points for the Soviets are left. And I mean, I have one HQ here that's at full strength. It would be the only HQ that I could really use to move units. So maybe I can build up this infantry. You know, I can build up some of this infantry here. So I said there was 19, so that's what? Now there's 13 left. Yeah, I could do that. Now I'm at 11. Do I want to build another ground unit or maybe an HQ perhaps? I think an HQ would be really nice. Ooh, I can actually try an attack over here at Leningrad. And so I'm actually getting a phone call, so I'm actually going to stop the video real quick. All right, and we're back. And so yeah, basically, where are we right now with this game? I have I'm trying to think. I have 11 production, or I have actually 1 production point right now, but I kind of want to build up these units here and try to see if I can have them participate in an attack, go an all-out attack on Leningrad, and what better way to do that than to have these units at full strength. And so that was the underlying problem that the Soviets had in 1941, was that I'm pretty sure the Stavka, which is the Soviet High Command, and Joseph Stalin, they were just, they didn't really care about the actual like health of their army. Their focus was what the situation was on the map. And to be fair, I mean, most of what they were learning about, their perspective of the war was through the war room and the map room, and getting all these intel reports that weren't always accurate on a day-to-day basis. And so the consequence of all of that is such that, you know, they were more focusing on like timing than they were focusing on anything else. So chances are they would have launched these attacks even if their formations were under strength, because they didn't care about they didn't care about the common power of their army. Their priority was just doing something to stop the Germans. And the Soviet Stavka, or the Soviet High Command, was very aggressive in the war. So I can do that. You know, I can do a little bit of that. I can cancel the production of this unit here, for example, and that would give me now 5 production points. And I can build now these 2 units up, 3 and 2. And I think that's as far as I'm going to go as far as building up units, because I don't think I can really spend money on anything else. But we can now blitz on Novgorod, and we may have a chance of actually breaking out and securing it. So we'll see. We'll see how this battle goes. I probably won't blitz. I don't think it's in the Soviets' best interest to blitz right now. But I do want to secure Leningrad as soon as possible. So I'm thinking, I was hoping to cut off Novgorod, but maybe that's too ambitious. We'll instead just focus on attacking Volkov. We'll see. But we have a winter campaign to figure that out. As far as building up any other units, I mean, the Soviets have a lot of reserves right now, and these 3 units are looking pretty awesome. But I'll be frank, I don't think these 3 units are actually going to arrive at the front line in time to participate in the winter operations. At least not for, maybe they can, I could be wrong, and we still have February as another month of production. March is a roll of the dice as far as weather, but we may be able to launch one more winter offensive. But I'm pretty certain that, these units, for all I care, I think I want to keep these units at cadre for pretty much the rest of the winter campaign, and just deploy them as some kind of strategic reserve, basically. Treat him as a strategic reserve. Don't really treat him much more than that. I think I'm good on mech units. I don't need any more. And I'm wondering, is there any more Soviets? No, there's not. So yeah, no more Soviet shock armies to deploy either. I have 2 near Smolensk, but they're pretty unsupported as far as I can tell, because our units are just not at full strength. I also want this unit here to be at full strength. This 11th Army. But the idea is that we can put a lot of pressure on the Germans sooner rather than later, and see if we can actually try to pull off some sort of substantial breakthrough. That's the main goal. I just want to break through somewhere on the front. I don't care where it is, somewhere, and I think I've already decided it's going to be here in the north. So I just want to make sure I have all my ground units ready for that. So you got to be really creative with the Soviet army, because they both seem to have unlimited manpower, but they don't really seem to have it concentrated anywhere where you would need it. So there's this weird effect with the Soviets. And the bottom line is that, at least right now, the Soviet army is just pretty drained of combat power. It's going to take them quite some time before they're able to build up all these other units, which are extremely powerful. I mean, these Soviet mech units, tank units, tank armies, tank corps, mech corps. That's the real strength, the real forte of the Soviet army are those mechanized formations, or motorized formations that gave the Soviets just that extra movement advantage on the battlefield. And so you could argue that Lend-Lease, at least in this game, provides the Soviets with more production points to build those mech formations. And the rule of thumb generally is to focus on the Soviet infantry, because that's essentially what the Soviets did historically. Was in 1941, they just focused on infantry and cavalry. They brought back their cavalry corps, but they weren't really building much in the form of tank corps or mech corps. Whatever they had available pretty much was thrown into the fight, and most of them were destroyed throughout 1941. But it wasn't until the winter of not 1941, but actually the second winter, 1942, where we finally see the Soviet tank armies come into effect. But they were not available during the first winter, at least not in great numbers. They had the shock armies, though. So those were the kind of the spearhead units the Soviets had during the first winter. So the first winter was very unique in that sense. So anyways, I think we've spoken enough. We're going to end the log file here. I've done the British production, right? And now I think we are ready as ever to do the Soviet production. I'm pretty excited for this turn. Any other adjustments I want to make or anything like that? Not particularly. Not particularly. I think it would probably be in my best interest to maybe reinforce Bryansk with another unit. Outside of that, I don't see really any other clear incentive right now for the Soviets. I kind of wish I could send a full strength unit into Bryansk, but I don't think I'm going to be able to. So anyways, let's start the file. Let's do the production. I really want to thank anybody who made it this far in the video. Thanks for your patience. Definitely. I know I'm a rambler, and it feels good to say that, number one. Number two, I'm not going to stop rambling. I'm going to keep going. But hopefully, you're enjoying. You're getting some enjoyment from my thoughts. Hopefully, and they're just not all just a bunch of nonsense after all. So, yeah. So let's now go ahead and start the file. I called it 01, which is what I should have called it, right? Yes. Okay, so we're going to start with the Soviets. It's winter time. I think I'm going to actually start with my operation here in the north. Actually, you know what? No, we are. So, yeah. And this is where, like, I wish I could explain in greater detail what I'm actually doing. But I'm actually, like, playing kind of a game of whack-a-mole. Or at the very least, I'm sort of pushing on more than one area on the front. And this is how the Soviets are going to find a weakness, a kink in the German armor. Because the German, not tanks, when I say armor, but I mean like shield, you know, the German defensive line is pretty dense. Let's be real. I mean, they have two mechanized formations near Orsha. They got a secondary line of reserves. They've got a lot of units stacked up over here. These units are pretty far away. The Soviet infantry can only move one hex at a time in the winter. So all the movement is restricted in the winter, even for the Soviets. And of course, over here, yes, we could try to attack Kharkov, but I don't see any breakthrough units. I guess Soviet armies, they're like average. I've got the Soviet 20th Army, which is a little stronger, but it's not in position, nor is it at full strength. I have no armor, no shock armies, nothing with double fire that I could use, because I want to attack with at least one unit with double fire. That's important when playing with the Soviets in the wintertime. Otherwise, I think the chances of breaking through are pretty slim. So what we're going to do is I'm going to try to figure out what the best attack sequence is. I think I know what it is. I'm going to send armor and this guy in there. Yeah, we're going to do something like that. Actually, yeah, that's what we're going to do. I think this is as good as it's going to get for the attack sequence I had in mind, at least for now. And I kind of wish I could send forth a stronger unit, but I don't think I can. Now, I could attack in another way. There's actually another sequence that I could do that actually may be able to bring forth a bit more firepower to the entire front line. I just realized I did one miscalculation right now with the Soviets, and it can be fixed. It can be fixed if I decide to activate another HQ, like the Western Front HQ right now. And come to think of it, I'm not going to do that. I'm actually going to save this HQ for another month, or maybe I activate it right now. I go ahead and do it anyways before the Germans have time. So I'm trying to just. The Germans have the ability to respond strategically to any Soviet maneuver. That's the important thing to keep in mind. You know, I'm giving some tips here, and you know the idea is that, you know, the Germans have Stavka. They can beef it up anywhere along the front. They can actually beef it up in more than one place in one turn. The problem for the German army is that they can only do it once per turn, once per month. Right? If they start activating their OKH more than once a month, number one, it ends up being expensive because you're spending 30 production points for 2 HQ activations. That's pretty pricey. Number two, the main problem is that the German HQ will be losing two combat value points per month when it can only gain one per month because of each production. And so it becomes unsustainable. And at some point, if you're going to try to activate the German HQ, you know, twice a month, you know, the next month is going to be full strength at only 2. And then by the third month, it's only at full strength at level 1. And so you're just losing, you're actually able to command less and less units over time as well. So that's a big problem that the German army has. So the key for the Soviets then is that you just want to kind of you basically want to overpower, or I guess outpace that German reaction mechanism. You want to have, you know, for the Soviets, you just want to keep the Germans on their toes each and every fortnight. And you don't have to do it all in one place along the front. If the Germans are beefing up one sector of the front, you can then switch gears and focus on another sector of another part of the front. That's what we're doing here pretty much. So, you know, I may gamble it. But I think for the Soviets, you know, I'm gonna try to do not one but two attacks at the same time. So I want to return the units back to their original place. The HQ can still stay put. But for example, at Volkov, I could send this cavalry from Tikhvin to Volkov. I can send the 12th Army also, you know, from the southeast. And remember the Riverside has a hex crossing of only one, hex limit of only one. And then at Novgorod, I can go ahead and send 2 more units forward and try to see if I can break through there. It's an interesting move. It kind of dilutes the Soviet strength rather along the front. Ideally, I would blitz at Novgorod and try to break through. The only problem I see with the blitz is that I don't think the Soviets actually are going to break through. But you never know. And I would hate to blitz only then to see the Germans not do anything. I think I am going to blitz though. It's probably going to be a little too soon. If you ask me, I think it's a little too soon of a move. So, you know, we're attacking with some armored units. I probably wouldn't send the armored unit on the first wave. Or I guess I would send the armored unit on the first wave. But then I would send an infantry on the there. No, I think the best unit to send forth on the first wave, without a doubt, is the Soviet shock army, for sure. And then I can actually send the armored unit all the way to Volkov. That's an interesting attack plan. But in this attack fashion, there's obviously the weakness of the flank here, which is without a doubt the biggest weakness that I see. And then the other problem, of course, is that you know, we just can't attack with too many units. I think we're just gonna do one attack with just 2 units, see what the Germans can do, and see what our forces can do. I'm not gonna try to overspend with the Soviets as I've done so many times before. And that's it. That's the only move I'm going to do with the Soviets. It's a very small move, minor move, but it is significant. And so that should be enough. Let's do the battle. We're going to start with the airstrike. It scores a hit. Defenders score a hit. There goes the shock army, losing a division. Or the Soviet formations are different. I think each of these units, I did some calculations. They usually represent 2 to 3 divisions. Maybe they represent a rifle corps. I guess it'd be like a rifle corps. Soviets roll and they score no hits. So yeah, pretty mediocre attack there for the Soviets. Kind of a bummer, but you know, lesson learned. So that's that. That's all we're going to do for the Soviets. We're going to switch over now to the German turn. Axis turn, rather. And we're going to go ahead and, you know, the Germans are like, pretty weak Soviet attack. Do we reinforce? We can. Do we want to reinforce? Not really. I think what I really want to do is actually activate OKW and actually start having OKW bring up these reinforcements over to Warsaw. I think that's really what I want to see happen right now. And I mean, there's not too many too many units to move on the Western Front. We could have probably deployed 1 more unit, but the Western Front, there's not too many units to move around, frankly. So I can move 3 units there. So, you know, this guy can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Actually, rewind that back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Boom! It arrives at the front line just in time. This unit can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, it's another rail move. Here's another third rail move. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I wonder if there's a faster way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Hold on, I'm gonna try this one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Was that faster? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It wasn't. One more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And here's the last one. 10. There we go. So we've done, what, 3 moves so far. And then here, I mean, in France, I mean, I've got this other units. Not sure what I want to do with it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Guess we'll do that. Think that's a decent move. Hard to say if that's the best move or not. 1, 2. I mean, there's another move. So that's 4 moves that I have so far. Any moves that I want to do? The Italians. No moves over here in North Africa. I think the only other moves I'm going to do are 2 more. Just move these 2 guys further. But here's the catch. Oh, you know what? I do want to send over another unit to the northern front. That would probably be a good idea. What better unit to move over than this unit here at full strength? So I can actually do it a 4th time. Oh, I think either way it's going to be a long trip, isn't it? I think our best unit, if I want to move a unit to the front line, probably is going to be this one, 16th Corps. I'm going to bring it back. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, and then I can do one more strategic move. Maybe bring him here. So that's 1, 2. So that's 2 strategic moves. And I did 3, 4, and then I did 5. I'll cancel this one. So I did 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I guess I can move these guys by 5 more. So the 59th can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to Minsk, and then this guy can go 1, 2, 3. You know what? That's not the best move. So we did 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh no, I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yep. I got one more strategic move, and I know which one. I'm going to move the 44th Corps right in there. There you go. And now we've triple stacked that area. Definitely looking beefier already. Okay. So that's it for the Germans. And you know what? We didn't even spend... OKW. I'm starting... I still got to familiarize myself with some of these rules. Let's look at the HQ transfer. You know, the command range or command movement across, you know, the front. Because I'm trying to understand these rules. Supreme moves talks about supreme moves here, but I'm looking for supreme moves across different theaters. And I guess I'm looking for rail moves. Here it is, changing fronts. Units can move freely from one front to another without effect, except that a unit's movement speed depends on the weather conditions on the front where it begins its move. Oh, I'm trying to read strategic moves. Here it is. They can command rail and sea moves that begin on their front and continue to another front, but in such cases, each rail move segment beginning outside the commanded front is limited to 5 hexes maximum. So you can, it's basically like adding segments to a rail move. And I guess you can still command that same unit outside the front. So I'm pretty sure OKH can command units, but let's look at 5.72. Oh no, I want to read at 9.21 rather. And that's going to give me a little bit more information on rail moves and these so-called segments that they speak of. Each rail move expends 1 supreme move. Units can make linked multiple rail moves to move further than 10 hexes, each rail move expending 1 supreme move. Okay, so I think I can still use OKW to command units that are technically on the Eastern Front, but since they originally started on the Western Front, that's fair game. But the range that I'm doing for the units that are now on the Eastern Front is only 5 hexes long, because OKW's command range is basically limited. I think that makes good sense. Now, you know, I think I've successfully transferred over all these main German units over from the Western Front. So you know what I'm going to do? This is a pretty ballsy move, if you ask me. But I'm actually going to... maybe I got to wait on the next turn. Or maybe I'm just going to go ahead and do it anyways. Yeah, it's 5 production point difference. I think it might be worth it. I'm actually going to deactivate OKW, and I'm actually going to have it moved by rail to Warsaw. And now I'm going to have 2 Supreme HQs. To be fair, the OKW is disrupted, but it's going to give the Germans some extra command ability on the Western Front, or on the Eastern Front rather, and that's what I want to see. It's going to slow down the Soviets. Plus, we did a number on the Soviets, so it's going to be hard for them to gain some sort of initiative. So anyway, some pretty good moves by the Germans, I have to say. We can now switch over to the British, since the Axis still have the initiative on the Western Front and Mediterranean Front, the same thing. The 21st Army Group of the British, I think right now it's just the British North African Army, or Army of Egypt, something like that. This unit, maybe the British 8th Army, it might be. I'm not exactly sure. Or maybe it's the 10th Army. This is the 10th Corps. I probably can do a little Google search on that. I think we will, because I'm curious to know. Let's just do a quick Google British 8th Army. See what pops up. I think it was the British 8th Army. In Egypt before being renamed the Army of the Nile, and then the 8th Army on September 26th. Participated in a lot of operations. So yeah, it is the British 8th Army, but the HQ that we have there is, it says the 21st. That's for the 21st Army Group. Technically, this is not an army group. This is just an army. So that's kind of interesting. How the scaling there has sort of changed. I guess the Mediterranean theater is just a lot of territory, but the units themselves are much more spaced out. That's what I'm kind of learning right now. So anyways, I can use this HQ. I can try to attack. I kind of want to wait though. I forgot to build up. Oh no, I decided to forego another turn. So unfortunately, this HQ is only at level 1 right now. But unfortunately, this British unit that's all the way here, 13th. Oh, you know what? I can move it. Oh, you know what I'm saying? You know what? I can move it using this HQ. That's what I'm going to do. Yeah. I'm going to move the 13th to Somaliland. That's as far as it goes. But I can do 1 supreme move. And I'm pretty sure this is the Mediterranean theater, so it's fair game. Mediterranean front. But I'm going to try to get that unit to come in and arrive in Egypt as soon as possible. That's the idea. So, with that, I haven't been doing rolling for storms. Maybe I should. We'll go ahead and do it. Even dice anyways. I'm pretty sure there are no storms when you have even dice. You just look at the storm table. It says even, none. Yeah, there's no storms. I'll remove these icons from their boxes. But I should be rolling for storms during the winter months, so I guess I will from here on out. But that's it. That's it for the Allies and the Axis. We're going to switch back to now the second fortnight. Soviet turn once again. Looks like the Germans have read our movement. I mean, there's not too much surprise there because we don't really have the advantage of surprise when playing this game. But I'm thinking for the Soviets, I would want to at least try to break through somewhere. Like I said before, maybe try another attack sequence. I think it's in the Soviets' best interest. If we do it, we keep attacking. It's going to come down to a dice roll. Fortunately, our units are not like as strong as they could be or should be, frankly. But, you know, we are still, nevertheless, bringing up more troops to the front line, and that's really what counts. And that's going to give the Soviets the strategic advantage that they really are looking for. It's just being able to move up reinforcements to the front lines as best as possible. So that's really important for the Soviets, especially given how so many units are under strength right now. And that's going to be the secret to the German, or rather to the Soviet success, is that we can just keep putting a little pressure on the Germans. So we're gonna quadruple stack here in the north. We're gonna make this the primary area of battle. You know what? We're gonna do a little rotation of units here as well. And again, the fundamental idea is to just put a lot of strategic pressure on the Germans that they basically buckle under the pressure. That's the fundamental idea. But right now we just don't have enough combat power to do so, I think, strategically. So that's that. We're going to go ahead and do the battle, though. We have air support. We're now attacking east of Orsha. The German HQs read our signature, right? But we still have an advantage in manpower. So it comes down to the dice. Air power scores a hit, already off to a good start. We've got 5 double fire, 3 single fire. Germans score some pretty nice hits. They score 3 hits altogether. We're going to put those hits on our infantry. Yeah. So we still have, how many dice? What is that? 10 dice. The first 2 are double fire. And then 3, 3, 2. So we scored 2 hits. Okay. So it was an even exchange. And keep in mind, even though it was an even exchange, the Soviets still have more manpower. That's the thing to keep in mind. So we're trying to grind away the German lines. And that's what you have to do with the Soviets. And this is actually like part of the Soviet like deep strategy doctrine, is that you can't just expect to break through immediately and just create a gaping hole in the front in a matter of hours. Instead, creating that gaping hole in the front takes days, if not weeks at times, I think. I don't know about weeks, but definitely for days for the Soviets. And so that's what you're doing. You're just wearing down the German tactical front line or operational front line so that the immediate reserves that the German army have are too weak to actually reinforce the front line. And then that's how you eventually achieve the breakthrough. It's when the Germans don't have any more reserves in the strategic situation, or rather in the operational situation. That's when the Soviets really dominate, because they can just keep rotating their manpower, right? And the key for the Soviets is to be just more cost effective than the Germans. And so you can do that by the simple fact that A, the Soviet units are cheaper. B, if you have a numerical superiority, you're able to basically put more dice into the battle. You're also healing up more units throughout each and every iteration of that attritional phase of the breakthrough, or pre-breakthrough attritional phase. So it's interesting how the Soviets kind of think about it in that way. And so yeah, that's going to be that for the Soviet turn. We're going to switch back to the Germans. And now the Germans are in a bit of a pickle, right? Because yes, the Germans were able to reinforce. They sent 1 corps in. They probably should have sent 2. They underestimated the strength of the Soviets. But now the Soviets have a dice advantage of four dice. They have 4 more dice. They almost have a 2-to-1 in firepower, number one. Number two, the Germans, they can only sustain 3 more hits before they actually start losing ground units, right? So the best course of action for the Germans right now is to do their own deployment and try to get more units rotating. But here's the kicker for the Germans, and this is the final deal breaker that the Germans just aren't able to keep up with for the Soviets during winter campaigns, during most winter campaigns, but especially this first one, is the fact that we didn't want to spend anything on the German HQs. The field HQs are completely under strength at the front line. We decided to invest all our production points on the ground units, and they still weren't strong enough to stop a Soviet buildup that's happening right now. So the Germans are going to either do one of 2 things. They can either hold the line with what they have, hope the Soviets don't destroy these Soviet units and achieve a breakthrough, which now is very possible. 6 dice is not uncommon for Soviet rolls. That's the first thing. The second thing is that they can try to hold out a little bit longer and then bring up these reinforcements on the next in 2 weeks, right? And that way they don't weaken their Supreme HQ, right? Oh, they haven't used OKH. Huh. Oh, you know what? I messed up, didn't I? I messed up. Technically, I used OKW to move the 44th Corps from Orsha over, but I actually wasn't allowed to do that. I just realized. So, I think I'm going to have to change that. So technically, this 44th Corps was not sent forth. So it gets to be at full strength. But these 2 units now are at cadre. I think it's a pretty fair exchange. That means we have 1 more move that we could do with OKW if we wanted to. And I think the best move. So hold on. I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I did 6 as the last one. So yeah, we can move this guy over here. How about that? Seems pretty reasonable. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, we'll leave it there. Okay. So now the Germans can respond. We actually still have OKH. So actually, what the Soviets should have done is they should have blitzed, because they would have entirely broken through. So that was actually a really good Soviet battle. But yeah, I had to make the correction there. Hopefully, y'all are still following. Y'all are still tracking as far as sending these ground units forward. So I'm going to send 2 units up. I'm actually going to send this full strength German infantry, and then I'm also going to go ahead and send the 91st Met Corps. I'm not going to send my armor, because the armor, they basically don't have double fire attacking, number one. Number two, they cost more than the mech, so it only makes sense for me to send the mech forward. The only downside I have with this setup is that if the Soviets try to do any breakthrough to the north, I actually don't have any units in range. That's the only Achilles heel I see with this sort of way of deploying. But these are the 2 strongest units that I would want to send forth right now. So yeah, so that's going to be 2 HQ moves for the Germans. I can also fix that problem immediately by moving the 59th Corps to Orsha. So that's 3. I still have 3 more moves by OKH. Incredible. What do I want to do? I kind of want to get the 54th Corps all the way to the north. Kind of get it prepped up for an attack on Leningrad. I think that's the best bet. The only problem is that I'm going to need to replace it with another unit, and I don't really see another unit that I could replace it with. Maybe this Kiev unit would be the best one, but it's a bit under strength, right? And I don't want to do that. So maybe I can just wait a little longer. That's definitely one option. You know what? I'll go ahead and just send this unit down there anyways. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so I've done 4 moves. I have 2 left, plenty for the Germans. I think what I'm going to do is move up another unit up here to Novgorod, and then we're going to transfer another guy down to Dno. And what I'm really doing here is just trying to be preemptive. That's the key with the German winter defense with the Soviets. You want to be as preemptive as you can. And so obviously, you know, with Soviet Maskarovka, the Soviets have an incredible opportunity to deceive the Germans if they're not careful, if the Germans are not careful. But yeah, so a reckless German army in 1941 really is penalized in the winter 40, 41, 42, or really for every winter, frankly, which makes sense. So anyways, I'm going to go ahead and pretty much finish up the German turn. I don't know if we want to reinforce these militia units over there. I don't think so. Yeah, no, I think we're good. I think I did my Mediterranean front production wrong. I just realized I only gave them 2 dice, but I should have given them 4 dice. So, yeah, I have 7 production. I had 3 technically. So yeah, I'm not sure. It's no big deal. We're just gonna go ahead and just move along because I'm gonna keep making mistakes. I'm pretty sure there's little mistakes here and there, but overall, I think I've done a pretty good job. You know, 95% accurate playthrough. I got a 5% error to work with. So yeah, we're gonna switch over now to the British turn, which were the last nation to make a move in this game. All I'm going to do now is just activate Mediterranean HQ here. I'm going to have it move a second time, the 13th Met Corps, and now it's going to move across the Red Sea, right? It's going to move from over here, which was Somaliland, which was, I believe it was Italian. No, I think Ethiopia was Italian, rather. Or was it Somaliland? No, I don't. Yep, Somaliland was British. And basically, this unit here, we're going to move it over to the Suez Canal, right there. And so now, as you can see, he's getting closer and closer to the front, and that's what we want to see. So we had to do 2 sea moves. And so now I can actually get this unit very soon to get it, try to reinforce the British over there, and it'll be much appreciated. We can use it to actually attack. So yeah, that's going to be it for the turn overall. Soviets don't have to move again. We already did that. But yeah, thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed. Oh, I guess the other thing I could have done is roll for the storms. You know, we'll say no storms on the Eastern Front, and then the Mediterranean or the Western Front would be a 3. And so we get the Mediterranean basin with the storm and the Black Sea basin. Or no, I'm sorry, it's just the Mediterranean basin that's going to get a storm. Interesting. Let's put a little storm table. Do I have storm icons there? I do not. But we'll put it right there. So yeah, just some restrictions there. But yeah, I pretty much wrapped up the video. Thank you for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed. I will see you all in the next video. Peace out.